let's get it then.
Hey, what's good, Savages? It's your boy, Mikey Savage 21, aka the Prince of All Sweaties, bringing you I'm bringing you an older video series today that I used to do called Top 5. That's right, guys, Top 5 is making a comeback. And today, I'm going to be discussing the top 5 best and worst horror movies of 2018 so far. Stay tuned. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and enable notifications so you'll never miss out on another discussion video. Now, without further delay, let's jump straight into the discussion. Boo! Yeah, guys, I was going to do that because it's a horror movie discussion, you know. What's up, Sweaty?
Ooh.
Oh, no, I spoiled the intro. Ooh, we don't know who it is just yet. But, hey, what's up, guys? I hope you're all having a great week so far. Today, I'm going to be discussing my personal best and worst horror movie list from this current year. And like I did in my Dragon Ball Super video, I'm going to preface this by saying, before I begin this list, I want to express that I am in no way, shape, or form bashing your favorite scary movie. I feel like I have to say that nowadays when you do anything that's opinionated or you put the word best in front of anything. Look, if you love the movie, then I'm super glad that you love it. Because again, to me, all movies are subjective. What I like and what you like might not always sync up. Just like your best list of the 2018 horror films probably looks different from mine. I know the guest that I have on today, his list is similar to mine, but it's a lot different than mine. But again, this is my personal list of horror films. So let's keep it sweaty and civil in the comment section, please and thanks. Well, joining me today, I have the man, the myth, the legend, the hungriest Dragon Ball YouTuber that I know, Kyo Kai. And yes, folks, I finally got him on a video where he'll be sweating out to one of his favorite topics, right next to Dragon Ball, that is, and that's horror films. How you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome. As of the time that we are recording this, I'm actually not hungry at all because I was able to go to my dinner for birthday dinner. Got hibachi and sushi, so I'm actually quite full. But if we're talking about for subscribers, I'm quite starving. So if you guys want to see anything, Dragon Ball, you guys can head over to my channel and check that out. But I am happy to actually be here talking about my favorite thing other than Dragon Ball, and that is horror and thriller films. Now, the category that we are doing, as in 2018, there's a lot of trash films that, one, I either did not see, went straight to DVD, went straight to Netflix, or I don't care about. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of films I didn't see, but there's only a few that were really worth seeing. So that's going to be, why you said that our list will be minorly similar. Most people's list is probably going to be minorly similar, and we are going to have a couple technicalities for sure. At least on my list, I know for sure I have a couple technicalities. But I'm ready to actually dive in because I feel that some of these movies that came out earlier this year maybe didn't redefine the genre, maybe didn't, expand it into a new direction or change the meta, but some of these films were great adaptations of what they needed to be and fit into the genre they needed to be, and I feel that that's why they might stand out the most. They played into what they were supposed to be, and there are other films on this list again that played into what you may have thought they were going to be and then twisted and were something completely different and were kind of a fresh breath to the horror genre. And it's kind of hard to top what's been coming out the last few years, especially with movies like, The Conjuring and all that, having very good jump scares, good, slasher films. And we've definitely also had, like Get Out, a definitely, psychological thriller. So, we have a lot of different genres of horror that are, getting shown recently in the past few years. And I'm excited to be here talking about, again, my top picks. So thank you for having me on the channel again, and I'm ready, like I said.
Hey, no problem, man. Thank you so much for coming on and discussing horror films with me. I really do appreciate it. Me and this man literally just sweated out, like coming out with our list and just talking about horror films and music and stuff. It was great. It is,
it's
man.
Hard.
It's hard.
It's hard when you haven't watched 2/3 of the list because they're like straight to DVD movies where, and I don't like to say this, you should never judge a book by its cover, but you should always judge a horror movie by its cover. Because, there are just a bunch of terrible B films that, you can completely tell how trash is going to be from the cover.
Right. And one of the things I need to say before we get ready to start this best and worst list, these films that we're going to be listing are categorized as horror films. We're not doing films that are thrillers with horror elements to it, so you're not going to see certain films make it onto this list. And there's no going to be any Infinity War on this list, because I know someone's probably going to make the joke, well, if you think about it, Infinity War is kind of like a horror movie because half of everybody died, like a slasher film, and Thanos ran around just taking people out one by one. Yes, if we wanted to be comical, we probably would put Infinity War on the list. There's not going to be any comic book related stuff on this list, which makes me a little sad on the inside. But hey, it's horror, so it's supposed to make you feel sad on the inside, or it's make you feel something on the inside. But all right, guys, we're going to start off with our best list, and then we're going to get into the worst list. So coming in at number 5, I have Annihilation. Now, Annihilation is one film that I was late to the program seeing. Didn't actually get to catch it in theaters. Actually had to watch it when it came out on DVD. For those of you who do not know, it's basically the Natalie Portman film where she is like a scientist and they have to go out and they enter something called the Shimmer, and it's like a mysterious quarantine zone, and there's like mutation going all around, transforming creatures. Now, I know a lot of people would be like, this is more science fiction than it is horror. It's science fiction, definitely, but it has a lot of horror elements to it, especially when you get to the later half of the film and what happens. Again, I'm going to keep this list non-spoilery, so if you haven't seen any of these films, you can go and check them out. But yeah, man, what did you think about Annihilation? Have you seen it?
Okay, so the title honestly sounds unfamiliar, but your plot description sounds like something I have seen for sure. And I know it's not Stranger Things. If it's the film that I think it is, it's like what you said, it's a female star, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Who has to travel back and forth. I do believe. I did enjoy it.
It's basically an all-female led movie because the female scientists, they're all female when they go into the Shimmer. It's like straight up females, and she's going looking for her husband, who apparently got sent to the same place, but has mysteriously disappeared and hasn't came back.
Hold on, is this the one with Morpheus?
Morpheus. Oh, you mean the guy who's currently set to play Morpheus?
No. Is the general? She's being interviewed, correct? She's being interviewed about her experience inside of the zone?
The Natalie Portman, yeah.
It's Morpheus. I'm almost positive that's the dude who plays Morpheus.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it doesn't matter if it is or isn't. But yes, I loved that movie. If I didn't even realize that's what that movie's name was, I loved that movie. That was fantastic. Especially the whole losing your memory aspect of that was very original. Because a lot of those, like Stranger Things, entering the void or the other side, like they can't explain their situation to the scientists well enough for the scientists, to like be able to do anything. So like the scientists have to go in and do everything. But she's a doctor, like she's already like certified to do research and stuff like that. So like we already have somebody who has gone in there, but they are probing her brain to now try to extract, what she did in there because she can't remember. And the horror elements, I feel, don't really come in till about an hour into the movie is with what I remember. Whenever they start realizing, and again, this isn't trying for major spoilers, whenever they start realizing the plant life is intelligent, whenever we hit that part, when those horror elements start going in, man, does it take off. I really did enjoy the psychological and, jump scare combination. I really like that. That's a solid pick for number 5.
Yeah, this is one of those films where it's like a slow burn, kind of like with Don't Breathe, where it takes you a little bit of time to get into the actual horror aspects, but once you finally get into it, the payoff is really great. Like I said, it was directed well by Alex Garland, had an overall all-star cast. I love the performance that Natalie Portman gave, as well as Oscar Isaac. Again, I felt like, the film did a good job of addressing things like, depression, dealing with the loss of loved ones, grief, and then just whole concept of self-destruction and whatnot, and like the world, self-destructing, but trying to put itself back together and whatnot. I think that was a cool aspect. And
life always finds a way. That's what I got from that film.
Yeah, same here. And that's why I said it was hard putting this at number 5 because the movie is so great. But there are just so many films that I felt like, took that concept and just kind of flipped it on its head a little bit. But all right, man, what do you have at your number 5?
Okay, so for my number 5, the one I picked Unsane.
Okay.
I felt that it was a nice twist on that genre. Again, I told you that I had to reach for my list, being that I did not find a lot of films that I was very fond of or had even seen. And I liked what this film did. I think that some of it could have been done a little bit better, but for what it was, it seemed like it was like an independent film. I'm not positive about that. I haven't done any research on that. Sometimes you get a film that is better written than it is portrayed on the actual film. And I feel, again, that this missed opportunities that I feel that its script allowed it to have. But I feel that overall it was a pretty solid movie, so I do feel that it's a nice 5.
Spoiler alert, Unsane will come up on my list later on, but just, talking about it a little bit more. It was directed by Steven Soderbergh, known for doing a multitude of films. He's one of those artsy type directors, but he's one of the artsy type of directors that does it right. I also remember going into this movie when I saw it, this is one of the films that they hyped up because it was completely shot on an iPhone 7 Plus. And again, you can tell,
I did not know
when
that.
you see it on the big screen.
That's why I was like, man, if that's real, or if that was the campaign they used, that's why I was saying, it feels like it could have been shot better.
Exactly. Because, there are certain things that don't translate well when you do with the phone. But again, the whole concept of shooting an entire, blockbuster of a film that's, praised, and then everybody seems to, talk highly about this movie. So yeah, it led with that whole gimmick of the whole iPhone 7 Plus, but just the whole concept of a female just being stalked by a stalker, and then you're just led to believe, is there really a stalker? Is this all in her head? And so, yeah, I would say Unsane, that's a good solid pick for a number 5.
And it's scary when they get to her, man. When they actually get her to think she's crazy, that's when the film really turns.
Yeah, I feel you on that, man. It does. And there are moments in there where you're genuinely terrified for the lady, especially, like I said, once you get to the later half and you reveal that there's something been going on behind, the main story of her, seeing her stalker everywhere. There's, another little sub-story that's going on that pays off at the end as well.
Yeah, good film. I think it was a solid film for 2018.
All right, so for my number 4 in terms of best, I have Veronica. And again, it says it was released in 2017. But this is one of those weird cases where it was actually streamed to Netflix on the 26th of February this year, and that's actually where I saw it. And I remember people were hyping it up, saying that this was the scariest horror film ever, and I said, oh boy, how many times have we heard that? Oh, this movie is so absolutely scary.
It was not that. I felt the overhype of that was almost like what Paranormal Activity 1 was.
Yeah, I still don't understand what was so scary about Paranormal Activity 1. I'm like, ooh, shadows. But at least Veronica doesn't go the whole shadow aspect of it. But it is similar to Paranormal Activity. Again, this is a foreign film, so if you do not like Spanish films, this might not be for you. Again, you have to watch this with subtitles. But one of the things I liked about it was, yes, it has the same basic story about the whole, Ouija board aspect. Don't play with the Ouija board. You lead to spirits. But it kind of takes that concept and then runs with it and actually draws you into caring about the lead character of Veronica. You care about the 15-year-old girl and what actually happens to her and her siblings. And then, like I said, once you get to the ending, it breaks your heart. And this is, again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but when you get to the ending of this film, it breaks your heart because you're just like, I did not foresee this coming. Because again, a lot of horror movies, you can see how it plays out. But I can say that one thing is, no, it was not the scariest movie I have seen this year, but it's definitely up there in terms of scary, though. There's some very scary imagery with here, and I feel like, outside of the U.S., these other different foreign countries and whatnot, they know what scares people, especially, the Japanese culture and the Chinese culture. They know exactly what scares us, and this is just a good example of someone from another country outside of the U.S. knowing what's going to scare U.S. audiences. Because again, at the end of the day, horror is subjective, because what you're scared of, I might not be scared of. But I feel like there is elements in this movie where even if you're not scared by one thing, there will be another thing in here that might freak you out or that might make you jump out of your seat.
I also put Veronica on my number 4 at my list, so I will make my opinion known now on what I felt on the film. I loved it. The hype, like I said a minute ago, it was way overhyped. I hated seeing all the Facebook posts and everything oh, scariest movie ever. It's not that. But I do feel that having the film take place in Latin America, you get a aspect of their culture as well as this Ouija board kind of movie. Because not only are we contacting demons with a Ouija board, which is, the classic, seance film that we have. There's thousands of them. They come out every year. This one takes Latin folklore. And they show it in the school that they're at as well. It's something that they're learning about to go along with this full moon. It's all of this, it's this one problem that's all going to happen because of this full moon. And it's crazy because it also brings in nuns being able to sense evil and that kind of stuff. But my major problem with the movie was when they were playing, and she was just she was first possessed, and this is trying not to ruin anything, so this is me trying to be a little bit cryptic just to you. When she does her dance routine, why did they just stand there? They should have been running away. running away to either get help or running away because it looks like you're about to get murdered. And that's ridiculous. But I really liked Veronica. I liked how it was shot. I liked the story on it. I thought it was a good kind of advancement on, again, the Ouija board kind of historical culture kind of film. And I think that when you watch a foreign film, since you don't have the language, you have to watch body language a lot more. And that may be what translates the horror of this film to English-speaking audiences a little bit more, is because of that just constant twitching and nervousness and just all these body movements that you pick up on, since you can't hear and audibly, be able to distinguish what they're doing with their voice acting.
Again, it's overall a great film. I really did enjoy the film. Again, it's one of the better Netflix movies I have seen in a very long time. A lot of time when these horror movies come out on Netflix, they're not so great. And then again, a lot of movies on Netflix, whether it be horror or something else, aren't that great. But yeah, moving on to my number 3. Number 3 is actually one we already had previously mentioned. It was Unsane. I'm not going to go into details about that. I already kind of gave my thoughts on that. So we're going to hop straight into your number 3, Keokai. What is your number 3 on your best list?
Okay, so my number 3 on my best list is another one of these films that kind of have, I guess, the similar kind of reasoning of why I picked them, which is they take the genre that they were already in and they either try to be the best that they can in that genre, and maybe the word best is a little bit wrong to use. Obviously, best is subjective, but they try to play into their genre as good as they can, and I feel that the films that I picked do that well. And this one kind of plays into a cult movie in the end, and you don't see it until the very end, or the very, towards the climax of the film. You think it's going to be one way, and that is the movie Hereditary, and I really liked it. I feel that it is a little bit low on my list, but I feel that the ones that I picked before it have a better reason to be higher on the list. But as a critically acclaimed movie that was in theaters, because the ones I have below this were not in theaters here in America, at least. I guess above these, actually. But this film had great reviews, great critic, analysis, and was actually widely loved by the horror community. It deserves its place on this list. And if you haven't seen it, I honestly feel that you should check it out. It's I think it's almost 2 hours, but it's a good, chilling 2 hours.
I can testify to that, man. And actually, speaking of Hereditary, that's actually what I have on my number 2 best list is Hereditary. And like I was telling Keokai earlier before we started recording, I actually saw this movie twice, and I feel like I freaked myself out the second time even more, because the beginning of the film, it does start off slow. I'll admit that. A lot of horror films, especially ones that are good, they don't try to hit you right away with like scary imagery and whatnot. They try to just slowly introduce the idea of what's going on, you get a feel for your characters, how they behave, and you always know a scary movie is going to start off scary when it starts off with the death of someone or at a funeral of somebody. You're just like, yep, you're already setting the seeds. But like once this one particular scene happens, which we're not going to spoil anything, and it just starts getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I remember watching it the first time I watched it by myself. I was like gripping my seat watching this movie, because it like freaked me out, because like I was internalizing everything that was going on. Because when people start, getting picked off and people start dying, I'm just like, I did not see that coming. And once again, like he was saying, this is one of those films where it's released by A24, which A24 puts out some amazing horror films. Again, this is one of those films where some people might not consider it a horror film, especially when you get to like the first hour or so. But once you get to like the second half of the movie, it clearly does become less of a drama and more of a horror. Exactly. And I could go on for hours and hours about Hereditary. The hype is real. If someone has hyped this movie up to you, believe the hype, because this movie is fantastic. I feel like Toni Collette was putting on the best performance of her life.
It's the twist. It's always the twist.
Again, we are focused in on her character the entire time, and how her relationship is with her daughter, with her husband, her son, blah, 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 all that good stuff. The hype is real with this movie, guys. I cannot stress enough how creepy the imagery in this movie is. And that ending, because Keokai said he didn't get a chance to see the ending of the movie. I described what the ending of the movie was.
Yeah, I missed the last 20 minutes.
I can't speak for Keokai, but just retelling it, I got chills up my spine, and it just freaked me out, because even when I saw it the second time, and I had guys with me this time that had not seen it, and we were just like getting, no. It was just, that uncomfortable feeling, and I have not felt that in a long time from a horror movie. So yeah, that's my number 2. All right, man. What do you have for your number 2 on your best list?
Okay, so my number 2 on my best list is another film that I'm not positive if it was a Netflix original or anything like that, but I saw it with its Netflix release at least. And that was the film Open House. And again, like what you said with Hereditary, it opens with a death of a family member and a tragedy, which already sets the tone to be bad. And then we go from bad to, bills not being able to be paid and blah, 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 and just all of these problems, and just a son and a mom having basically a breaking point about a teenage son and his mom basically having this relationship ending segment of their life that they're having, and then they're offered asylum inside of basically a cabin in the woods. I mean, a very nice, I guess, like mansion in the woods, but it's kind of a problem, and I like what they did with it. I like who I thought the killer was going to be and that it wasn't. I also liked how some of the things played out. I was able to call a couple of the deaths in the film, but I think the most unique thing I've ever seen in a horror film happens in this film. I don't know if I want to ruin it. Do you think I should ruin it? What my favorite torture method is from the film?
Yeah, you can give a little bit of a hint to it, man, because it's not necessarily spoiling the ending of the film and whatnot.
Okay, so the boy wears glasses and contacts, and the killer basically gets his weight and everything on top of the teenage boy and pins him down and takes his contacts out of his eyes and then tells him to run. Like, that is crazy, man. That is the most torturous thing. We're talking about running in the cold night, like, with not being able to see, because they show you that, like, he is terrible with his vision. So, like, it's just crazy to see that, and, like, that was very sticking with me after the film. The way that happens, and then a couple of the deaths that happen before that, which I'm not going to spoil, were very, very jarring, especially for what I thought the film was going to be and what it turned out to be. But I really liked the cinematography and the story that this movie brought, and I think that's a solid number 2, especially for 2018.
Yeah, and in terms of being released on Netflix, yes, it is a Netflix original horror film. Open House did not make it on my list. I have not actually seen all of the movie. I've just seen bits and pieces of it, and I saw the trailer, and I know it has Dylan Minnette, and he was actually in one of my favorite horror movies from 2016, being Don't Breathe, along with the other cast of characters that I really enjoyed, including Stephen Lang. So I have not had a chance to see this movie, so I can't really say too much on this movie, but just from what you're describing and everything, just the feeling of you can't see and someone blinds your vision and then tells you to run, and then you can't see, so you might be running into a lake or running into a tree, or
that one's bad.
Into some of anything, because
that one's bad, but the majority of them are house problems. The reason why it's called Open House is because they're staying in their sister's house, or his mom's sister's house, and they're trying to sell it. So they keep having these open houses, and they think people are breaking into the house and stealing the key and, like, messing with the house and all that kind of stuff. So, like, then a culty kind of vibe comes in right in the middle, but that's not what it's even about. You think that that's what it's going to be about, but it's not. And that's when this independent serial killer is revealed. And that's, like, another thing that's very jarring. And I guess I should have used that in my description a little bit better. I very much encourage you to take the little bit of time it is to watch that film.
Yeah, and from what I remember people telling me about it, you don't ever get to see the killer's face, and then they just never gave him a name, so they just dubbed him the Open House Killer, because apparently he likes to go to open houses and just, like, find his way into, like, the attic or into the basement and just live there and just start messing with the family until he ultimately either kills them or tortures them or does whatever he wants to do to that particular household. But all right, guys, now I'm going to move into my worst list before I actually get into my best list. And what I'm going to do with this one, instead of just basically talking about each one, I'm just going to go ahead and list off my 5. I'm going to have Keo Kai list his 5, and then we'll just react to our overall list and everything. So coming in at number 5 on the worst horror movies of 2018 so far, I have The Strangers Pray at Night. Coming in at number 4, I have The Cloverfield Paradox. Coming in at number 3, I have Insidious, The Last Key. Coming in at number 2, I have Winchester. And coming in at number 1 as the stinkiest and sorriest horror film I have seen in 2018, we have Truth or Dare. All right, Keo Kai, what is your top 5 worst list, man?
Okay, so I have Cloverfield at 5, I have Insidious at 4, I have Strangers at 3, I I have 14 cameras at 2, and I agree with you on Truth or Dare being the worst of the films on this list. I think that we should talk about that one last. And I want to make a point, I guess, at least about my first mention, that I picked Cloverfield to be on this list as a cop-out because I did not have enough films that I had seen to make a 5 worst list, and I feel that continuity-wise, I did not like Cloverfield in the canon of the rest of the films, but as a standalone film, I very much enjoyed Cloverfield Paradox. I liked the aspects of horror that they had. They used both horror on Earth, horror because of isolation in space, horror because of time travel, and horror because of time paradoxes. And all of these are psychological, thrilling horror bits, and they just keep throwing in these weird monstrous images and these gory images, and I very much enjoyed it, but it was not as good as the other films that I had on my best list, and it's definitely not what I have as my number 1 best film, but that's not what we're here to talk about yet. Like I said, talk about the worst right now.
Cloverfield Paradox, not only was it a bad sequel, but the movie overall just, it never really captured me. It went for some cool elements, and while I appreciate the aspect of being trapped in space and the concept of being transported to another dimension, because once again, scientists are trying to meddle with things that they don't understand. One of the things that I also liked was they tried to have the family aspect built into this movie as well as it tying into like a Cloverfield movie. To me, it was good, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, man, why is this on your... Look, guys, I overall did not enjoy the movie, and I know a lot of you are probably screaming at me right now because I have The Strangers Prey at Night on my list, and I'm going to tell you exactly why I have that on my list. To me, it did not feel like the original Strangers.
Doesn't live up.
It does not live up to the hype as the first one. Even if you take that as a side and this was just a standalone movie by itself, it does not hold up because the overall killers don't seem real. At least in the first one, these killers seemed like they were actual real people. I mean, the way that they go about torturing and killing this family, it's supposed to be completely random, but it ultimately feels like it wasn't random at all. It feels like this was staged from the beginning, like, I'm going after this particular family. And again, the killers, they don't feel like the same ones from the last one. I know that the actors didn't come back to reprise their roles, so that's, the way they move and act and stuff is all based on who's under those masks. Again, the director... No, not taking any shots at him. He shot the movie beautifully. There was some very creative scenes, some very beautiful looking scenes, especially one of the scenes that you probably saw in the trailer where they're like at this motel and then you have like the strange neon lights going on. And this is obviously, trying to be like an homage to like the late 70s, 80s type style horror films, that came out around that time period, especially with the whole neon light background and whatnot. So again, the movie is beautifully shot, but I do not think it lived up to the hype at all of the first one. I was just highly disappointed in the movie. But getting to the worst film we have, Truth or Dare. What can I really say about Truth or Dare other than Blumhouse?
It's a trash concept, a terrible shooting. Everything's bad about it.
Jason Blum, you got me again because I understand what you were trying to do with this movie. This movie obviously was not aimed at me. It was not aimed at a serious, hardcore sweaty. This was aimed at the teen demographic. You can tell by its young cast and who they cast in here. I mean, again, you have Lucy Hale in here. You have Tyler Posey. These guys are known from like different like shows that are for teenagers. I think Teen Wolf is what the guy Tyler Posey is from. And I know Lucy Hale is from Pretty Little Liars and whatnot. I watched none of those shows. Those shows aren't aimed at me. They're aimed at a teen demographic. So that's what this movie was for. That's why it was PG-13. So you can have little horny teenagers take their girlfriends to go see it. Their girls will get scared by the stuff that's going on the screen, and they'll get close to their boyfriends. And then again, this is just another movie for teenagers in general, whether they have a date or not, just to go and just geek out with their friends and whatnot.
A date or not.
This is not one of those films where if you're really super into horror films, you're going to find anything to appreciate about this film.
Yeah, you're not breaking this film
exactly.
down.
This film, there's no meat to it. There's no substance to it. Again, they had a somewhat cool concept about this demon being like possessing this game of Truth or Dare, and if you don't like necessarily answer truthfully or you don't do the dare, you end up dying. It had some cool elements to it, but overall, I felt like it fell flat. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this is the same guy who did the movie Cry Wolf.
I loved that movie. That's terrible because that movie was awesome.
Yeah, that movie was actually kind of cool, especially, with the ending. Seeing him
Plot
do
twist.
this is, kind of disappointing.
Yeah, that, and I know that people are probably going to be a little bit upset that we also put Insidious on this list. And I feel that we should talk about that for a second, that it had a good story. It's just for the fact of it isn't what the other films are. It doesn't live up to what the other films are. It's nice
missing
to
James
see,
Wan's touch.
Exactly. And it's nice to see that it's trying to harper back into, connecting it into the very first film, like with what the ending does. But the meat of the actual film, I feel like could have been done a lot better, and I feel that makes it have to be one of the worst because of how it compares to its sister
Like
films.
I said, when it comes to the Insidious films, to me, 1 and 2 are the only ones. 3, I feel so bad for the girl who is in there because she was also in another bad movie. You remember Jim and the Holograms? When they made that remake, that was terrible. And then I feel like she came out with this movie next, and then this was terrible. So I felt so bad for her career because I was like, I love this girl. If you guys don't know, she was off of Disney Channel, actually. She got her start on Disney Channel. She was on this show called Ant Farm. And I actually loved her on the show Ant Farm. I thought she was a great antagonist to our protagonist of being China Anne McClain's character. So when I saw her in that movie, I said, okay, I'm interested in seeing this. And then I saw it and I said, well, that's a movie. I said, at least they'll stop and it won't get worse. And then 4 comes out. And there's a reason it's called The Last Key, because I think this is implied this is going to be the last Insidious film. Because, again, one of the things that's missing is James Wan. Without James Wan, you ain't got no good Insidious film. It does not feel the same. You still have Leigh Whannell there and still have Leigh Whannell on screen as well.
It's not the same.
But you're missing James Wan's sensibility. That's something that can't be replicated, something that James Wan is known for. And I felt that in 3 and 4. That's what was missing.
It's his style, man. It's his style.
It's the overall style. But all right, guys, we've kept you waiting long enough about what is our best film. I'm gonna let our guest Kehoe Kai go first, man. What is your number 1 pick for the best movie of 2018?
Okay, so this film is, again, another Netflix film, guys, because I love Netflix. And just like Mike Tyson, if you don't know, Mike Tyson loves Netflix. And I saw this Australian film that redefined the zombie kind of plague film. It kind of did what 28 Weeks did, and it made it not a actual zombie outbreak, which usually upsets me, because I'm like, if you're going to make a zombie film, make it zombies. But this is a movie called Cargo. It's an Australian kind of infection movie, zombie movie, whatever you want to call it. And basically what ends up happening, it's going to spoil a little bit, but his wife ends up dying somehow, and he ends up getting bit, and they have a daughter that is maybe a year old, if that, and he is trying to find somebody to basically pawn this baby off on. That is his goal, is he wants to find a good home for this baby. He wants the CDC as his major plan, but he wants somebody that will be able to take care of his baby, since he will be dead within 48 hours when the virus takes a hold of him. And I really liked the concept. I like what they did with it. The only thing that I don't like is the reason the wife dies is 100% her fault, and if she would have just listened to what he said to do, she wouldn't have been dead, he wouldn't have gotten bit, and everybody would be okay. So it's the wife's fault for everything, but I think that it was a pretty good change of pace for an infection movie. We had a lot of these zombie movies coming out. One of my favorite zombie films actually came out 2 years ago, Train to Busan. But we have a lot of these zombie films that are coming back out that are actually relating to real zombies. So it was nice to see an infection movie kind of come in to change that bunch of
Yeah,
films.
no, I feel you, man. And I saw Cargo. I agree. It is a solid film. I really did like it. I was kind of mixed on the film overall. Again, I love Martin Freeman, especially, now that we got him in the MCU. With his appearances in Black Panther and Captain America Civil War. So I love Martin Freeman overall as an actor. I thought it was an interesting concept. All right, guys, I've hyped it up. And most of you probably know what my best film is. It is A Quiet Place. Hands down, has to be one of the best horror films I've seen. Just one of the best films I've seen overall this year. A lot of people are calling this movie 2018's version of Get Out. I will agree. This is 2018's version of Get Out. This movie was fantastic. Not only do you have the man directing the movie, but you also have him acting and starring in the movie. And you have characters that are relatable, that you care about, and the overall premise of aliens coming down, taking over the planet to where if you make any sort of noise, it attracts them and they will kill you on sight. They won't eat you, but they will kill you on sight. So the whole world has gone mute and silent. Combine that with the fact they have a daughter who's deaf, who has to speak through nothing but sign language. So that kind of works out for them throughout the film. But then just the overall atmosphere and the way that the movie is set up. Opening scene, right away, they had me hooked about what was going on. And then the overall look of the creatures, what they look like, did not disappoint. I did not need to see something that was like 8 feet tall and drooling with blood and guts. The creature looked simple and it looked practical. And again, just the movie itself, the way it was written, the way it was shot, looks amazing. Again, I cannot hype this movie up enough. This is a cool concept, guys. Like, seriously, I'm sitting here getting sweaty in my chair as I am talking about A Quiet Place. Hereditary did get very close to A Quiet Place, but A Quiet Place edged it out just a little bit. But yeah, guys, that is my number one film, A Quiet Place. You heard Keo Kai's number one film. He has Cargo at his number one list. Again, guys, what are your personal lists? Again, you've heard our thoughts on the best and worst horror movies of 2018 so far. But like always, the discussion does not stop there. Let us know down in the comment section below what you think is the best and worst horror movie from this year. And are you excited for the upcoming horror movies that have yet to be released, like The Nun or Patient Zero, etc.? Post your thoughts down below and be sure to subscribe to my channel to hear more top 5 discussions, as well as Keo Kai's respective channel. And I'll make sure I leave a link to his channel down in the description below, as well as to my channel. Keo Kai, do you have any final words you want to say to everybody, man?
Yeah, man, I hope I can get back on a Dragon Ball video with you, since I haven't been able to do one of those with you yet. I love coming and talking movies. I want to come back and talk more movies, obviously, especially horror being my favorite. Maybe a Scream video at one point. But I'd love to come and talk some Dragon Ball and give a little bit of my Dragon Ball insight to some of your fans.
And spoiler alert for you guys who do not know, yes, we will be doing a Scream video at some point. I'm going to go ahead and hype that up now, but you guys are going to have to wait a whole month for that because it's not going to come out till sometime in October. But thank you all again for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Peace out, savages.
Catch you guys next time.